So chapter 11 ends our unit on world religions. We'll be talking about Islam in this chapter, and we'll start with the origin of Islam, how it spread to many different people rather quickly, how it turned into an empire even, and we'll look at the Crusades, and then we'll close with Islam, Christianity, and Judaism. What difference do they make? Origins of Islam. Islam emerged in the Arabian Peninsula, and this juts out into the Arabian Sea. You've got the Red Sea and Egypt on the western side of the Arabian Peninsula, and then the Persian Gulf on the eastern side. And so think present-day Saudi Arabia, Yemen, United Arab Emirates, Kuwait, Jordan, Oman. This is the area that we're talking about. This is where Islam emerged. And of course, the founder of Islam was the Prophet Muhammad. And when he was 40 years old in the year 610 CE, he said that he was visited by the angel Gabriel, and these visits continued for about 20 years. And during Muhammad's life, his teachings were passed down orally, and then after his death, his words were memorized and written down in the Quran. And the Quran is their holy book. There is a... Okay. So, the Quran is regarded as the absolute, uncorrupted word of God. And with the spread of printing materials and paper, Islam spread quickly through the Quran. So the 5 pillars of Islam. They are declaring the creed, which is there is no God but Allah and Muhammad is his prophet, and then praying 5 times a day facing Mecca in the east. The third one is giving alms to the poor, or giving gifts to the poor. The fourth one is fasting during Ramadan. And the fifth one is making a Hajj, which is a pilgrimage to Mecca, which is their holy city. And some people say there's a 6th pillar of Islam, jihad, which is a sacred struggle, and some interpret that to be a physical struggle, like a military fight to preserve Islam, and others regard that as a personal struggle just within to be a devout Muslim. Faithful Muslims will attain paradise, and a lot of people compare Islam with Judaism and Christianity because in all 3 religions there's the worship of a single God. All 3 of those religions are monotheistic, and there's the obligation of the rich to help the poor. So some similarities have been drawn between those. Responses to Muhammad. Muhammad probably had the best response in Mecca. He first converted his wife and then supposedly his cousin, Ali. But Mecca was really the nucleus of Islam early on. And that's where the concentration of people were that converted to his message. And they came sort of from all classes of society. Some were business people, some were slaves, some were just tribeless people, and some were his family members. Muhammad himself was a merchant, so it would make sense that he would reach out or appeal to the business class. But most Meccans found his moral teachings to be too demanding. And when he told them about the epileptic-like fits that he had when he received revelations from the angel Gabriel, many questioned his mental stability. And some even feared that his teachings threatened their own belief, especially idol worship in their homes. Some Meccans were already monotheists. There were Jews and Christians living there, and they didn't feel like their monotheism needed purification. They felt that they were just fine with Christianity and with Judaism. So the death of a lot of his first-generation followers caused the remainder of them to relocate elsewhere. Since Muhammad was rejected by some of his own tribe and the Meccans, he sought a place that would be more receptive to his message. And so he received an invitation to go to the city of Medina, and he took the invitation. And so this is actually called the Hijrah. I could be butchering that, maybe. But this just refers to the migration or flight of Muhammad from Mecca to Medina, where he was welcomed as a leader. And this became a central moment in history. In the same way that Christians begin year one of their calendar with Jesus' birth, Muslims begin theirs with the Hijrah and Muhammad's assertion of governmental leadership in Medina. Muhammad believed that the only way for Islam to survive was for him to create an Islamic government called a Dar al-Islam, which included all types of government institutions and laws that would protect the faith. And in Medina specifically, he promulgated codes of business ethics, as well as family laws of marriage, divorce, and inheritance, which were all based on the teachings of Islam. So after establishing his authority in Medina, Muhammad wanted to return to Mecca and try to gain converts there. And when he did, he ended up in skirmishes and battles with the city that eventually led to his victory. And so Muslims gained control of the Kaaba, which is like a pre-Islamic religious building. They destroyed Meccan idols. They turned the building with its sacred black rock into an Islamic shrine. And even today, the Kaaba is like the most holy site of Islam, and it's in the center of the mosque. But by the time Muhammad died in 632, he was on his way to creating an Arabia-wide federation dedicated to the faith and the political structure of Islam. Successors to the Prophet. When Muhammad died, he left no male heir, and the Muslims feared that their community and all of its political organization and laws would break up. So to preserve them, the leadership elected Apwh, who was one of Muhammad's closest friends and the father of his wife Aisha, as caliph. And these were the successors to the Prophet Muhammad. So the caliph or the caliphate is a form of Islamic government, and the caliph is considered to be a political and religious successor to Muhammad himself and a leader of the entire Muslim community. It was a series of military successes that were responsible for spreading Islam throughout the Middle East, particularly military success in Damascus in 636, and then military success in Jerusalem in 638. And when they had success in these places, or when they conquered these places, they would set up garrison towns, which were like Islamic military towns, which were meant to provide law and order. Unfortunately, many of these were very unstable. And so the question became, was Islam a religion or was it an empire? So I want to talk for a second about this concept of empire and some of the early struggles that they faced. And so I'm going to try to spell some of this out for you so you can see what we're looking at here and make connections with what you're reading in your textbook. We talked about the caliphs right here. The first four of the caliphs were called the rightly guided caliphs. And they were mainly called that because they had known Muhammad and supported his mission to spread Islam. And I'm going to put their names up here for you because you will probably not be able to just figure out how to spell them. The first one was Apwh, and then there was Umar, and then Uthman, which I'm, again, maybe butchering these pronunciations, and the fourth one was Ali. And these, again, were called the rightly guided caliphs because they had known Muhammad and supported his mission to spread Islam. So as they ruled, they held Muhammad's example and they used Islam to try to guide all of their decisions. So again, their caliphate was known as the rightly guided caliphate. It's important to mention the influence that these four caliphs had in the expansion of the Muslim empire. Each of the rightly guided caliphs played a role in quadrupling the size of the Muslim empire in the 29 years after Muhammad's death. Umar expanded the empire into Egypt, Syria, and even parts of the Persian Empire. Uthman and Ali completed the conquest of Persia, or of the Persian Empire, and all four of them expanded fully into the Arabian Peninsula. And in the end, the empire included all of Southwest Asia and even part of North Africa. So what were the reasons for their success? Muslims were energized by their faith and were willing to fight to spread Islam. They were great soldiers. And by this point, the Byzantine and Persian empires had been weakened by years of fighting anyway. So it was not too difficult for Islam to spread into those areas, or for the Muslim empire to spread into those areas. The Muslim conquerors let Christians and Jews keep their faith. So that was another thing that, I guess, enabled their spread. In regards to Muslim rule, over time, many of the cultures that were brought into the Muslim empire converted to Islam, and that was mostly because of Islam's message of equality and the hope of salvation, and not to mention the tax break that they would receive by becoming Muslims. Probably the largest division in the empire took place between the Sunnis and the Shiites. And I'll spell these so you'll have them for your notes. And one of the main causes of this division, and what began this division, was deciding who was the rightful leader of the Muslim people. Should it be someone in the hereditary line of the caliphs, or should it be someone who was chosen by the Islamic leaders? So in 656, there was opposition to the Caliph Ali, who happened to be the cousin and son-in-law of Muhammad. And people opposed him and did not want him taking power over the Muslim community. Those who opposed Ali supported Uthman's cousin, Muawiyah. And I will spell that for you. And I want to say there's an apostrophe there. So after Uthman's death, a civil war broke out between the different groups of Islam. And again, one small group of Muslims believed that the caliph should be chosen by the Muslim community, and the opposing side believed that the caliph should be chosen by heredity. So Ali was appointed as the next caliph, but he was not accepted by all Muslims. So as it turned out, Ali was murdered, and the Umayyads, led by Muawiyah, took power over the Muslim empire and set up a hereditary dynasty. In other words, leadership was now passed down through bloodline rather than election. So again, the leader would be chosen by birthright. The Umayyads moved the capital from Medina to Damascus. They also abandoned the simple life of the previous prophets and adopted a more lavish lifestyle. So this was sort of a departure from previous caliphs. And I will spell Umayyads for you because you may see that. So because they wanted peace, most Muslims accepted Umayyad rule. And unfortunately, the Sunnis, who were the majority of Muslims, believed in electing the caliphs, not letting them rule by birthright. So Ali's supporters said that Muhammad's family should succeed him and that he had trained Ali as his successor. They did not accept that Abu Bakr, Umar, and Uthman had been real caliphs, only Ali because he was a cousin of Muhammad. They also thought that Muawiyah and his followers were more interested in power than in Islam. So this division resulted in Ali supporters being called Shia Ali, or Shiites for short. And again, these were the ones that believed that caliphs should be chosen hereditarily or through bloodline. And they believed that the caliph should always be a relative of the Prophet Muhammad himself. After this, the Shiites never really gained control of Islam. Even today, there are far more Sunni Muslims than there are Shiites. I think only about 10% are Shiites. But they are a powerful minority, and they have power today in Iran, Pakistan, and Iraq. And they actually believe that one day the final successor to Ali, called Mahdi, M-A-H-D-I, will come to set up the perfect Muslim state. And we'll go ahead and end this video here, and we'll pick up tomorrow with the spread of Islam, or the further spread of Islam.